have Sara Lee and even Yahoo to their own incubators, where they've literally set up physical space for external entrepreneurs to focus on developing technologies for them and with them. And I think that's a very forward-thinking approach. And then finally, what I would just call collaborations, which is they're not formal alliances, but they're very involved in different ventures, informally and formally, with other companies related to technologies of interest to them. So we've touched on the first three steps within this framework of strategizing, defining, and developing. Now let's talk about nurturing a network's evolution and using experiments and initiatives to drive innovation and business outcomes. I want to start this with a page here on obstacles and keys. Brian Uzi is a professor at Northwestern, and he's done some great work in relationship-based networking. He's identified key obstacles to avoid and some key points to consider that I really believe in and have seen firsthand. And I believe this really does apply whether it's your personal network or a more formal organizational network. On the obstacle side, there's this notion of self-similarity principle, and it's simply that you tend to be drawn to people who resemble you, either other engineers or other people like you, people who you have similar interests with, which actually is an obstacle to building a functional network because your ability to learn new things and make new connections is going to be limited with that. The second obstacle is the proximity principle. Basically, you tend to spend more time with people, network people you spend the most time and are close to. And that's a fairly obvious notion, but it needs to be something that you are cognizant of. Now, on the key side of this thing, I think there's a very important notion here of shared activities. And that is simply that when you share activities with people, it tends to be a cross-section of people with a common interest. Think the sports teams of interesting people you meet who are the soccer moms and dads, your community service ventures, cross-functional teams. That shared service or shared activity is a very powerful mechanism for meeting people with new connections for you. So it's why I included on this section of network growth. So now let's talk specifically about experimenting and measuring within these networks. As a network develops and matures, you need to create specific initiatives, projects, and co-development efforts within them as catalysts. Innovation is complex. Open innovation is more complex. It's not linear, and you can't take a linear approach. First we'll develop a strategy, then we'll roadmap and do tech scouting, and then we'll feed these opportunities into our stage gate system and predict an 18.7% increase in R&D efficiency by year 3. You can't predict when a consumer need is going to be uncovered, and you can't predict when an enabling technology is going to